Welcome to the Spark Joy podcast. And today I am talking about how to change your career at any age. Now, I really felt to make this because I've gone through these transitions in my own life where my career has shifted and changed. And as I've looked back, I've realized that there's clues there that could be helpful if you're also navigating change in regard to your career, to your vocation, to your calling, because, the work that we do in the world and how we contribute with our gifts and talents is the most important way that we spend our time, during our life, during our week, during our day. And I might just backtrack actually just to when I was, I started off as a professional photographer when I was a young person. That's what I trained in. And I felt this transition come where I had all these weddings booked out. I used to shoot weddings. This is many, many years ago, decades ago now. And I remember having this feeling of pit and like a pit dread in my stomach where I was just like, I don't want to shoot this wedding tomorrow. And that was a major clue and transition in my career that I was only about 23 or 24 at the time, but I was about to go through a profound shift and change where I was going to be moving out of a creative industry and into corporate. And yes, it was kind of like a heads up. And so I followed that and I actually started giving, I made sure that people had time for this, but I started giving deposits back for weddings that I had pre-booked. And I just said help them find another photographer and that I wouldn't be available because I was coming into this new season. And so that's really, this is just such a vital subject, and I can't believe more people don't actually talk about it, that there's not more training or understanding, or certainly I wasn't able to kind of find that information when it was important to me. So sometimes when you think about changing your career at any age without starting over is an important bit because you're never starting over, you're never starting from scratch. So even when some of the skills that I took from my photography was, I had sales, marketing, confidence, I had influence, being able to be creative, put together projects, I had all these skills. And so I wasn't starting over. And so that's the number one point that I want you to think of today is that you're never starting over. So, yeah, what else have we got here? Yeah, your greatest asset, it actually isn't your resume. And so it's the life that you've already lived that is already breathing in your whole being, who you are, your energy, and all your unique perspective. So I want you to consider that if you've come to a point, and this happens to all of us, in successful people's lives, where they might realize, actually, I don't want another job. I want to actually, and I'm going to talk into that a bit more as well. I want something that is a vocation, a calling that, really aligns all of my gifts and talents and what I'm good at. And I want work that looks more like me. And so I think that, we can stumble into these careers and this work, and it can be really, we form an identity and, a self concept about who we are within that career, within that work. So, maybe you're 40 or maybe you're 50, you could be a midlifer. It comes around pretty fast, doesn't it? But maybe everyone around you just thinks, hey, you've made it. And you might have ticked off some of those boxes. You might have financial freedom. You might have a beautiful home. Maybe you've, built a career that you're incredibly proud of. But inside, something still feels slightly unfinished. And so I really, I'm so interested in how we can come and take some of, the work that you've already created and breathe new life on it where it could be revitalized and be a brand new career. And I'm going to give you some examples as we go. So, this is really for people. It could be because maybe you've experienced loss or gone through failure, but you've also gone through success. And then the success you've had, you're just like, all right, well, I'm here now and I've done this. And perhaps you've collected the commissions, you've had your name up in lights, you've collected the trophies, but you're wondering how you can translate that success further. Or you've gone through loss and failure and you're like, well, what could I do with my loss and failure? And I'll tell you what, that's even almost a richer area that you could draw on to create a new career at any age. Some of the biggest accounts, like on Instagram, where people are actually, making money on through their social media, it's like divorce coach, parenting coach. I saw one the other day and it was for a mother with Down syndrome children. She with that massive following, huge account, lots of an educator, all based on her own personal life experience. So I'm sure before she got pregnant, she never thought she was going to have a career as, as this mentor for parents of Down syndrome. And honestly, I don't even know anyone Down syndrome, but I was so fascinated with her content. It was so excellent, and I felt really drawn into her story, as I watched a few of her reels and some of her content. So loss, failure, sharp transitions, unexpected corners, all of these things can be really rich material that we can use to create a new career for you at whatever age you are. Yeah, but so for many decades, and I think even when I think back to, career advisors and school and how, it was so basic. The actual advice, you would talk to your parents, and depending what type of family you grew up in, if they were educated or not and went to tertiary education or college, university, what type of advice you would get. And my career advice at the time at 16, 17 really came from my cooking teacher who said I should become a professional chef because I was one of her most talented students, or my photography teacher who said I should not go to teachers college to become a school teacher, which is funny because I'm kind of educating now. Um, and that I should become a professional photographer. And so I ended up taking his advice. But it's good to constantly review, to look at where you are and at your career and what you've achieved and the skills and where you're at and take stock. Maybe it's been shaped by promotions, titles, qualifications, security. And a lot of people in the past would just follow that ladder. There will be the next rung on the ladder to go up. And but I think with AI and we're going through this massive shift at the moment that you should expect to change your career at any age. Your career today will not look the same in a year or in 5 years or in 10 years. So this is a really, really important video that I'm teaching today. And yeah, make sure if you're listening to the podcast just on audio, make sure you check out the YouTube because I'll have the video up there so you can see while I'm teaching. So yeah, just thinking about, what all the things that have shaped your career so far, and you followed that ladder and you just got on the next rung and you just kept going. And there's nothing wrong with like faithfulness and stewarding and just continuing on with where you're at. But I think one of the amazing things about the way God's made me is I'm able to look at people and be able to see fresh possibilities. And so if you're somebody who hasn't really reconsidered, could there be a fresh possibility here within my work, either building on what you've already done? And so an example of that, you could end up taking you know, all of your knowledge, you could turn it into education, online education, sell a course. You could write a book. Maybe you become a speaker and you start speaking in industry events. So it's about like elevating your career to the next level through unexpected steps that maybe you haven't thought about before. And so these are the things that I would support you in. And I'm really wanting to plant the seed today for you to think about what that would look like in your career. So, um, yeah. So your career ends up richer than your resume. And, you end up with this, all this experience and all this wisdom from your career, and you've done deals and you've signed up clients and you've marketed yourself and you've overcome, different things. And so it's taking some of that rich material, some of that confidence that you've already underpinned your career with, and then thinking, how does my experience compound? Because your future isn't disconnected from your past, it's actually built from it. So thinking, could I take some of, every difficult conversation, or perhaps you have experienced some kind of failure in your career, the leadership that you've done, business that you've done, every mistake, or maybe you've rebuilt, there's like lessons in it and none of it is wasted. So, yeah, one of the biggest myths is that you're starting from zero. So, if you are, if you've ever had a job, any job, let's say a high school job, and maybe you're a young adult, but I think most people that will be watching this are going to be, midlifers or people in, further down in their career and wanting to look at their career with a fresh vision, fresh eyes, and thinking, how does this translate? Into something different, perhaps that I haven't considered. So yeah, it's there's a way to think about it. I want you to imagine your life so far has handed you like a set of letters, and I've given this analogy before, but they're skills, experience, stories, insight, hard-won judgment, and they're kind of like the exact letters that you need to spell the same word over and over. And so that you could do the same role, the same title, the same container, maybe the same city, the same people, the same type of clients. And you just always use them at work, so you just kind of keep going. But what changes everything is when you take those letters. So we're going to take, experience, stories, letters, skills, insight, hard-won judgment, and then we're going to spell an entirely new word that would speak a new word over your career, over your work, of what you're creating in the world. So you don't actually need new letters. And I think this is where people get hung up. I've done certifications. I've, become the professional certified coach. I've, done different programs over the years. Um, but those things are not actually going to set you up for success and being able to create radical change in your career. It's actually looking at what's already in your hands, um, and then bringing some of those things forward, because you'll be able to speak to them more powerfully because you know them inside and out. It's not something you've just learned. So yeah, I think it really takes a completely different posture and to actually have a different career. So we're going to reposition your thinking today so you can think about your career in a fresh new way. There's actually a different role available for you, even where maybe you're not even a player. Maybe you've been within somebody's container, within someone's business, you've been an employee. But maybe the new word with all your skills says founder. It says entrepreneur, builder, business owner, um, somebody who would be influencing the marketplace. And we're going to take away the label that you're no longer an employee, even. Um, And I don't have a problem with being an employee. It's um, more about sometimes people can end up getting an identity that actually limits them. So there's people who are employees who are not limited because they're operating in their own as an employee from a higher identity as a leader, as someone contributing to that business. So that's a distinction you want to make. But if you are an employee, you've got these skills. What would it look like if we took it and then we brought it outside that business into your own? Um, you became the composer. You became the authority and the conductor of your work. And that you weren't the contributor, but you're the maestro. You actually wrote the score and decided how the work would sound. And I'm kind of using analogies to, like an orchestra, a conductor, and maestro, somebody who sets the tone and pace. And if you can elevate your self-perception and your self-image and your identity to what an entrepreneur, a founder, builder, somebody who is building something, you'll be able to have fresh new thoughts around your career. So you'll be able to look back at yourself more objectively and kind of give yourself advice like you were your own friend and be like, you are amazing. Look at everything you've achieved in your career and imagine how this could be used. You don't need to be a nurse anymore if you don't want to. And do you realize that actually the influence in the way that you care for people and nurture and, do wound care, do you realize that you would be an excellent group mastermind coach or something? I mean, and I'm not positioning any um, particular industry, but I'm just trying to like bridge that gap. It can be that wild. And then you start putting some numbers around it, around, well, if you were to replace your income from an employee, what would it look like to have, how many clients would you need? It's usually like one a month if you were to do the House of Maestro. So yeah, definitely just thinking, a maestro isn't a technician, they're an author. So you're authoring your own work. They're not contributing inside someone else's score, they conduct. And they move from being in the orchestra to being the composer of the work itself. And all the eyes are on the composer because they're wondering how the composer will direct the orchestra and what the sound will be that would come forward. So the shift is from noise to symmetry, from experience to authority, from experience to authorship and skills to authority. And it's really the hidden career that most people actually never build because going to be completely upfront here, it takes risk and it takes courage and it takes boldness because you would have to step away from a known identity and think, could I, with my skills and experience, could I become and do something new? Can I change my career at any age? And the answer is yes. Bonnie is saying yes today that you could. Um, and I want you to have that shift. And yeah, your unassigned experience, all of it, and the parts that don't fit neatly on a resume, they can become your undeniable authority. And only once you stop asking, like, what role should I play next, and start asking, actually, what am I actually here to compose? And look, there might be some tears. You might actually, because when you ask that question, because I think for so many years we live in this like survival. I don't know, I have before, and sometimes it's okay to just like do the thing that will get you through. Um, but there comes a time where you're like, what can I live from purpose? Can I live from my more an inner wisdom and truth. And that's where you would be asking the question, and you'd be saying, what am I here actually to compose? What is it about the sum of my life and who God's made me? What have I been designed to bring forth in the world and contribute? So your life is the intellectual property, and I really love this. Like every experience you've had has been producing something. And yeah, I mean, we can look, and I don't know if you journal or not. I do, and I have a rich journal history going back to when I was 17 years old. So I have piles of journals, which I plan to turn into intellectual property. It's got insights in there, which I can share. You may not have journals, but you have got something that you have been downloading, collecting, studying, something that's a hobby, something that you enjoy. And so you have these nuances, and this is where you would pull your intellectual property from. So, every experience you've had is producing something. It's not just memories, it's assets, framework, stories, perspective, language, likes, methods. And, when you look at your beliefs, your opinions, you'll be able to then weave through and think, okay, what is my perspective on this subject? What uniquely could only I bring to this? Um, and that's where influence begins. And the people that get paid the most in the world today are the most influential because um, they've got an opinion, they have a perspective, they have experience. Maybe they've actually built something substantial, tangible, and but it all comes back to that intellectual property piece that they have taken, and produced something from their raw materials and what's inside them. So, yeah, this is normally the part actually that people skip because it feels a little bit abstract until you make it concrete. So, every hard season you've ever walked through, you've walked through it in a particular way, and it's been your way. And every problem that you've solved it with a specific lens that nobody else has. And because nobody else has actually lived your exact life, this lens is not incidental. It is almost the way you see life and how you've shown up for it is almost like your fingerprint. It is completely yours. So right now, I want you to put your thumb up and your hands and look at your fingerprints and say, there is cash in my fingerprints because I'm unique and I have a unique perspective. And so what are you carrying? What is in your hand? And this is the raw material, that we want to try and that weave and pull out of you. It becomes the raw material for your body of work. And I love the sound of a body of work. I enjoy reading books and I love finding an author I like, and I love it when they have a body of work. Or I can go and watch all their YouTube channels, of all their videos. They have a body of work. Or I can read all their books. There's not just one. Um, or perhaps it is a spice at the supermarket that you put in your food and you discover that brand has a body of work. They have many spices. So then you want to buy all of them, different flavorings. So, yeah, definitely just this is the audit phase. So, yeah, so just to summarize, your life's your intellectual property. So I've made that pretty clear. So the audit, 4 places to look. And so all of that is true. If your life's genuinely been raw material, not a sunk cost, because where do you actually start looking? Because some people think that sunk cost fallacy. that they've already invested too much in their career, too much time's passed by, and that is just a load of rubbish. You can walk away from anything any day and begin again. And new things, when it's like at the beach, if you pull something out of the sand and the tide comes in, it will fill it. And so that sunk cost fallacy, there will be new things that will fill the space if you were to let something go to make room for this, for a new body of work. So, so these are the four places I want you to audit this week. And I want to give you some like tangible tools. So first, your voice. And so I'm using my voice right here. And this here is one of my valuable talents to be able to communicate, speak, influence the tone of my voice, all of these things. And so I want you to think about your voice, not even like your literal speaking voice, but it is the way you communicate and what actually produces in a room. So when you lead, when you speak, when you influence, when you love people, when you care for people, are you the one who teaches, who commands authority the moment you speak, or who gives strategic cut through advice? Or are you the one who nurtures the way a great nurse or counselor does? And so, where people soften and open up around you, your natural cadence actually isn't incidental, and it's a market signal, and it tells you the shape of the work you're built to do. So, it's quite interesting. About 3 years ago, no, actually probably longer, about 5 years ago, I was going for some job interviews, and I had a couple of interviews at this company, and the sales manager and the CEO both said to me, we really like your stories and you're a really good speaker. Now, the job I was going for had absolutely nothing to do with either of those two things. Sure, I'd speak to customers, but it was not like that. So there was a clue there that there was something on my voice and for me to utilize it. And even they're not, I could give you lots of examples, but I'm just giving you that one right now of people recognizing, hey, Bonnie's a speaker and she's got something to say. So the next one is your territory. So these are the four places I want you to look and to audit this week. This is your raw material. So look around you and your territory. So reconsider where your work actually happens. Have you assumed that your career is actually bound to a building, a neighborhood, a region, when it could just as easily scale online, nationally or globally? And so super excited about this one because I see, different businesses, and if they were to take what they're doing locally and think what happens if it was like like multi-regional or multi-states, or if it was in another country, how would their business translate? Or if they took everything that they were doing offline and put it online as an additional thing, what kind of business growth they could get from it. So just geographically, when you think about where you are working, could you expand that way to change your career at any age? We all have, cameras, video, we have computers. We can, without even leaving our office or going to the airport, we can move about, our territory, which is exciting. So yeah, sometimes the biggest shift available to you isn't actually a new skill at all. It's actually just expanding your map. And so yeah, I encourage you to get a map out even just when you're, in a quiet space and have a look over that map geographically and ask God, like, where is my career or business, going to flourish and what kind of places? Maybe he'll send you to Asia. Maybe you'll go and do business there and do you mean there might be different markets if you took exactly what the product or the service you're selling right now or, your job and you're to do it in another market, you may have more success. So your knowledge bank. So total up everything that you've accumulated, every role, every skill, every strange detour. Help us. We've all been on them. And then look for the intersection. Because when you take two distinct pieces of your background and then you merge them, you don't actually get an average of the two, you get something entirely new. And a proprietary kind of combination of that belongs only to you. Somebody else, has actually maybe only lived two things and you've experienced five. Maybe you're just really excellent at one thing. Maybe you know everything about honey. Um, yeah, there's so many different ways we can, take this. And this is a really rich area. And this is number four, which is your failures and transformations. And so total up everything, all these losses and failures and transformations, and start mining them. Your breakdowns, the ones you've actually walked all the way through, actually your often richest material, richest material for content, for inspiration, to help others. For if you've solved a problem that was incredibly difficult and challenging, you already know so much information on that topic because of everything that you've walked through, done. Um, yeah, it's actually very exciting. So it could be broken finances to financial confidence, burnout to boundaries, whatever your version is. And your turnaround could be actually someone else's complete roadmap. You could just sell your roadmap. I remember when I went through a divorce, before I went through it, my counselor, he is a clinical psychologist, he said it's going to take you everything that you've got to get through this divorce. And I thought, oh, surely it can't be that hard. And so these are, you know, the, I would have a roadmap for people. I could sell a roadmap. This is what you need to consider. This is what to expect. How they have that book which is called If You're Expecting, like having a baby. It could be if you're expecting, or maybe we don't want people to expect a divorce, but if they were going through one, they could buy the book. Maybe I'll write that book sometime. Um, Yeah, failures and transformation. So the underlying shift between all the four of these is that I want you to stop treating your past, your education, your time, and your money and your training as a sunk cost. And yeah, and like I said at the beginning, unless you're 5 years old, you're not starting from scratch, and that you're actually carrying potentially a masterclass of accumulated wisdom straight into your next chapter. And that's not baggage, it's actually leverage. Come and say hello on Instagram and messages, and let's have a chat about how we can leverage some of that for you. So, yeah, just one more exercise. Real change doesn't actually come from frantic, like striving, which I kind of can't stand, but from trying to actually releasing yourself from trying to fit into a familiar box. Um, and it's okay to actually confront that tension between the your comfort zone and the unknown. And and a lot of people, the unknown, like nobody knows what's going to happen at all. People have 5 years plans. No, I'm sorry, in this landscape, no one knows what's going to happen. And so the unknown is actually we should be thankful that the unknown is in front of us and that we can expect good things. But if you're just holding on too tight to the known, what you've always known, what you've always done, that can be a limiting place to be. And so if you can find a way to open up the door to many, with your career, trying some new things, that's a way to experience the unknown and to get some evidence from the other side, pretty much. gather new evidence of what changing your career at any age could look like by, working through some of the steps that I've said so that you can, get more certainty and more confidence. You'll get feedback. And yeah, and that's actually the fastest way to know what's actually possible to stop guessing and then, yeah, move forward. So maybe this is not the season to throw your career away straight away, but maybe it's inviting you to just reinterpret it and to stop asking what job should I do and begin asking what has my entire life uniquely prepared me to contribute to. And the future belongs to people who can translate experience into value. And I might actually do something on that, creating value in the world. And, value is where you'll get paid and where you'll be rewarded from when you create huge value. And perhaps your next career isn't a career at all. Maybe it's more freedom, more time. Maybe you're barely going to work at all, but you're going to create something that's really aligned with all of your experience. And it's the beginning of your life work. And I really believe that and when you step into your life work, into your calling, your vocation, that there should be a flow and effortlessness to it. Not to say it won't be, completely easy, but once you lock on and you know what the activities you should be doing to build it, there'll be peace and flow as you become, move from the player to the composer, from contributor to maestro. And yeah, and so this is exactly why, I love this subject, which is I'm always asking the question, what has my entire life uniquely prepared me to contribute to? And I feel like I'm doing it by speaking on this podcast today. And yeah, definitely just, yeah, allow yourself to imagine that your skills, your experience, and your story, your insight could spell an entirely new word or a new world for you. Um, and yeah, and that this is actually something that I would like to invite you into. So I've actually, my current offer is House of Maestro. So it's one-on-one personal um, high personal contact mentoring in the House of Maestro. So it's not simply how to change career, but how your unassigned experience becomes undeniable authority. And so interested in that whole thought leadership piece and how to create assets from your experience and from your career that could be, create a global authority for you. A career which, would not only impact your own country, but would, also have reach, through online, through the internet, through global platforms, you'll be able to reach more people with your body of work. And that's what I'm interested in walking alongside some carefully selected people who would do that inside House of Maestro. And yeah, how your life gets architected into a body of work, the work can actually recognize resource and reward. And because the future of work actually belongs to people whose identity is bigger than their job title and people ready to stop kind of just devaluing, everything that they've got and thinking actually this is highly valuable and rather than funding someone else's horizon, start to lead into your own bright future. And so if that's you, love to talk to you. And yeah, definitely check out all the show notes below, which will have the link to that. And yeah, that's today how to change your career at any age. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Bonnie Brown, and it's lovely to have you here on the show today. Bye bye.